Welcome to Tangent PropTech, where real estate meets innovation and goes a bit off script. I'm Edward Cohen, PropTech entrepreneur and your host, alongside my co-hosts and PropTech venture capitalists Jeffrey Berman and Zach Ahrens. On this show, we bring on a guest who's shaping the future of real estate. We dive into housing innovation, climate tech, the future of work, and everything transforming our buildings and cities. And of course, we go on some tangents. If you work in real estate, PropTech, development, or if you're just obsessed with making buildings and cities better, this show is for you. Because sometimes the best real estate ideas start with a tangent. Hi, I'm Edward Cohen. Welcome to Tangent. Today on Tangent, we have Nathan Herz, co-founder and COO of Paraspot, the AI solution to fully automate your property inspections. Hi, Nathan. Wie geht's, wie steht's?
Buenos dias, Edward. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just trying my best Bavarian/Swiss slang this morning. Where does this podcast find you?
I am in beautiful Englewood, New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan. What about you?
Very nice. I'm on the other side of the Hudson River. I'm in Brooklyn, living the dream in the Empire State. Nathan, you grew up in a multifamily real estate family and walked through buildings in Switzerland growing up. So how did that upbringing influence your view on real estate and PropTech, and how did it lead you to founding Paraspot?
So it's very interesting. Both my grandfather and my father were or are pediatricians. And my grandfather started investing in multifamily pretty much straight away. And my dad continued this. So from an early day, I understood how to create wealth with real estate. My dad's practice was in one of the multifamily buildings that my family owns, and we lived in one of the apartments there as well. So we were very close to tenants always. And besides understanding the financial aspect of things, I also got a better understanding about the unit level operations of a multifamily building. So that includes move-in, move-outs, deposits, turns, renovations, etc. So from a really young age, I was very familiar with real estate. Maybe a little fun fact, I didn't watch a lot of TV shows, but the ones I used to love were real estate shows. So there were some local ones in Switzerland and Germany that no one of the audience will know. But the other one, which I really loved, was, of course, $1 Million Listings. So yeah, always was a big fan of real estate from a very young age.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know if in Switzerland you had home and garden television, but that was one of my favorites, and it wasn't too popular among my kindergarten friends, but definitely $1 Million Listing and home and garden television, some precursors to falling in love with real estate and PropTech. So tell us about your first use cases when you started automating inspections. I mean, starting in Europe and in the Middle East. What made those markets so chaotic when it comes to turnovers and inspections, and how did you start building your solution?
Of course. So I'll go a little bit back in time when we started the company. So my co-founder and I started the business as a real estate marketplace, and that's also where the name comes from. Paraspot means in Latin matching a place, and we wanted to build a marketplace out in Germany similar to Zillow or Trulia, which are now of course the same company. And we used our computer vision algorithms back then to automatically create data points on the units just from assessing the images of the apartment or of the house. And then we used to scrape the internet to find location data, where Trulia was really our company that we looked up to. We were based in Israel, and we spent a lot of time in Berlin, where we started that marketplace out. And when we stayed in Berlin, we were staying at a company called Wonder Europe, which is a furnished housing co-living provider. And we became very friendly with the operations team because we wanted them to list their units on our platform as well. And because we were very close to them and we explained them what we do, we started to see them running around like headless chicken every end of the month, right? These companies have turnovers every 6 months. It's furnished, a lot of stuff can go missing, young people staying there. Then the idea came up for the pivot, and it was like, I remembered how I used to do inspections, the pen and paper, and we were like, okay, we're assessing a unit automatically with our computer vision. We assess inventory, we assess flooring and the structure of the unit. Why don't we use these algorithms to conduct inspections? And that's how the wild pivot was born. We basically stopped the marketplace where we already onboarded 50 brokerage firms in Berlin. And we went all in on that. And another really nice thing about it is my professional experience is in B2B. And B2B2C or B2C wasn't really 100% what I was comfortable with or what I knew. So that was also another great advantage of doing that pivot. We signed them as a design partner. They're our oldest client. They're still with us today. That's how the pivot and the product today basically started.
Wonderful. I mean, not only listening to what the market is asking, what the needs of your clients are, but also playing to your strengths. We all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses, but it seems like we're always better off when we double down on what we are good at, what we know, versus trying to make up for our downsides, which again, better to focus on our strengths. And if the market was requesting it, then sounds like a match made in heaven. So you mentioned 3,000 furnished rentals in Berlin and Dubai. I mean, that's no small feat, but this also led you to a global A/B test. You've also told us earlier that there's difference in cultures, in industry cultures across the US versus overseas, where US property managers don't quite trust tenants to do their own inspections in some cases. So what have you learned, about the different geographical expectations and user behavior when it comes to property inspections?
It's super interesting. First of all, as a startup founder, you always try to push the envelope as much as possible. And we allowed our clients only to do tenant-led inspections. That was our shtick, right? Fully AI automated tenant inspections. No one is going to the units anymore. No one is checking them anymore. Just the tenants are doing it. And in Germany, that worked quite nicely because Germans usually do what you tell them. They like to go by the law, and it has its upsides and its downsides. I would say that in the US, what we started to learn very quickly was that it's more tenant focused, where they're trying to provide them with a certain service, and then they just don't trust them. So there's just limited trust to tenants, I think, in the US. So the interesting part was that we were like, okay, why do we care? Like, those inspections can be done by the real estate operators as well. It doesn't change anything for us.
Right.
And that's where we, implement a really important puzzle piece in our software, which is called our inspection journey. So in the inspection journey, you can basically determine what type of inspection you want to conduct when, and who's conducting that inspection. So we have clients that do a pre-move-in inspection by themselves. They allow the tenant to do a move-in inspection and a periodical inspection. And then they do a move-out inspection by themselves, for example. So we have clients ranging from offloading inspections to tenants, starting from 30% up to 50-60% of their inspections. And usually they start with a lower percentage amount, and then when they gain trust in our solution, it becomes more and more.
Fascinating. Different environments, deliver different relationships between what it seems like similar stakeholders, right? On one side, you have the housing provider, aka the landlord, and the other side, you have the renter, the tenant. But certain environments or certain regulatory environments or supply-demand dynamics have led to less or more trust among the parts, even though we should all be very much aligned because some of us need housing and some of us provide the housing. So
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And maybe another thing to add here, most of the tenants really appreciate the option to conduct an inspection by themselves, because we all have rented apartments in our lives, and probably the most of us have been screwed by a security deposit deduction one way or another. It didn't even have to be a bad actor from the landlord or from us. It could be just that there wasn't good enough documentation at move in and move out. And that's why this friction happens, right? Besides building a successful business and saving time to our clients, for us, another big play is to really create that transparency and relationship between landlord and tenants. And to have a AI inspection, which is not biased towards any of these players, right? And just gives you an as-is comparison of before and after is a huge improvement to the current, state of the market when it comes to inspections.
And everything around inspections and what Paraspot does ties to deposits, security deposits, which we're going to talk about in just a second. Now, we haven't zoomed into the actual solution technology. So tell us, what does Paraspot actually save operators in terms of time, money, and staff coordination, and how do you do it?
Absolutely. So on a macro level, we save operators time, money, and staff capacity. And it's exactly what's needed today in a high turnover market in terms of, employees, and also in a high growth market. So today, most property managers, they still spend probably an hour to 2 hours per inspection. And there, we have to factor in the scheduling, the travel to the unit, the reporting. And of course, there are some differences between single and multi. There's actually some big differences between single and multifamily. And we're going to talk about that later on as well. So with Paraspot, we dropped that time to under 10 minutes because our AI handles the detection, it handles the documentation, and we create a side-by-side comparison automatically. And this efficiency is so important right now because, for example, our Billion report, I think it was from 2024, showed that 80% of property management companies want to grow their portfolio this year, right? That's the one lever that they have to make more money. It is so difficult today because nearly 1 in 3 employees leave each year, right? So you want to gain more units. You have to then hire more personnel because otherwise you can't manage the turnovers and you can't manage the inspections. We have clients that want to do move-out inspections on the day of the move-out so they can turn the unit as quickly as possible and don't have it vacant for a long time, and they simply can't because they have to go to the unit. Takes them an hour plus at the unit to conduct the inspections. They take hundreds of images and then they go back to the office. They have to do the before and after comparison, write everything up. It is so outdated. It takes them so much time and it really affects their NOI.
So you're saying on average, and there are nuances between multifamily and single family, but on average,
For sure.
an inspection time could take anywhere between 80, 90, 100 minutes, and you're cutting it down to under 10 minutes?
Correct. So let me rephrase that and just be more precise here. So of course, the travel time is one thing. So if you let a tenant do the inspection, you save on that travel time. But if you go by yourself, the travel time, of course, will stay the same. The difference is in the in-unit inspection. So for example, when it comes to multifamily, a usual inspection length is probably around half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on the type of inspection and how big the unit is. When it comes to single family, we usually see an hour plus inspection. What's similar between single and multifamily is that they have to go back to the office afterwards and finalize that report. So they have to go through all the images that they have taken. They have to make a decision what they want to deduct from the deposit or not. And then there is some new legislation as well, for example, in California, where they have to match move in and move out images in order to be able to deduct from the deposit. So we automate all of that process. We give them automated cost estimates. We create an AI description for all of the damages. And of course, we find all of the damages for them automatically and find the best frame from that video to show that damage as well.
Amazing. Empowering the teams to really focus on what matters and not having to waste time on stuff that we cannot compete with.
That's exactly it, right? It's at the beginning, companies were afraid or employees were afraid that this would take away jobs, right? And AI is such a big subject today, also in real estate. Like, thank God, finally some technology in real estate, which is getting some hype as well, which I think is fantastic for our industry. But AI is here to assist the operators with tedious manual tasks. You can ask every property manager out there. If you ask them what their favorite and what their worst task is, I can assure you that doing inspections is usually one of their worst tasks. Because they can happen if the end of the month is on a weekend, they have to work on a weekend. If they miss on something during that inspection, they're getting screwed because they missed out on it. And we really help them automate that whole process and make their life much easier.
So true. The weekend component is such a crucial point. None of us that aren't meant to work on weekends enjoy working on weekends. I see that from our side on Pro Sentry, where if we're monitoring water leaks and the leaks happen on Christmas, and they happen on Hanukkah, they happen on Diwali. I mean, it's the worst day for it to happen. And not that it makes it better if they have to do it on Mondays, but the fact that it's on a weekend, usually the move outs or the turnovers really makes them feel like this technology is catering to them and to helping the operators focus on the important things and not necessarily replacing them.
For sure. And, that is one of the big reasons of why you have such high staff turnover.
Yeah.
Because it's really a tough job. And we work with a lot of these people and they're amazing. And one day I would love to hire them into Paraspot as well, just to sell our solution as well, because I think hiring people that have used your platform is super powerful and they speak the same language as our clients do. But that's another thing, right? The property management market over the past 10 years, let's say, has been so underserved when it comes to tech solutions. Like, yes, everyone is using a PMS and, we have some using deposit alternatives now and stuff like that. But no one really built out a platform or a product that changes their day-to-day work dramatically, because people are like, okay, they're just, the property managers or the field or the super, I just want them to go to the units, do their work, and that's it. Like, no one cares enough about them. And I think we need to give them solutions as well. And I can tell you from clients of ours that these supers are like so excited. They're like, what? I don't have to take 60 pictures anymore. I can just take a video and I have something to back myself up if in case I miss something. It really helps us to get buy-in from the on-site level as well, which is really rewarding as a founder.
Right. And for the operators themselves that aren't going inside the units, but they're sending their team, it puts them in a tough spot before Paraspot, because they either, if they miss something, then maybe they could have taken from the deposit, or more importantly, the new tenant will find it and will start that relationship in a negative way or with their own experience. And then the operator that went into the unit missed it because he took 59 pictures instead of 60. But I think it's a game changer.
It's so funny, because inspections is a very boring subject. It's not as sexy as, leasing or some, handsome VR walkthrough of the unit or something like that.
Right.
It's not sexy, but every real estate transaction, if it's a purchase or a rental, starts with an inspection.
Right.
Take a property management company, they're taking on a new building or a new house, they're doing an initial inspection.
Yep.
Tenant moves in, inspection. Tenant moves out, inspection. Vendor comes in, repair gets done, inspection. It is such a crucial component of every real estate transaction. And to be honest with you, I'm amazed. Now other companies are trying to catch up, putting an LVM or an LLM on top of their tech stack right now and call it an AI walkthrough. But we've tested them out and no one comes close to what we're doing today.
Fascinating. So let's talk about, well, the unsung heroes of PropTech adoption, which in this case, it's regulation. Not only in New York City, we had a new rent law back in 2019 that required security deposits to be returned within 14 days. Previously, it could take months before the landlord returned the tenant their deposit. But now, more importantly, and directly impacting the value that, or enhancing the value that Paraspot can bring, is in California, where new laws require before and after evidence to deduct from deposits. So what are the operators' needs in this new regulatory landscape in California, and how is Paraspot stepping in at the right time?
So California was really a disguised blessing for us. The new legislation came out called AB 2801. And it's basically there to protect the tenants from unlawful deposit deductions. So whereas the usual client or the usual property management company in California would do a move-in and move-out inspection, today they have to do a move-in inspection. They have to let the tenant do a pre-move-out inspection and notify them of potential deductions. Then they have to do a final move-out inspection, and they need to do a post-repair inspection. That's one that you forgot. So they basically have to prove that the work was completed, right? They can't just say, hey, you damaged the carpet, I'm going to charge you for that. And then they're not doing the carpet, they're just letting it in for the next tenant. So from 2, we go to 4 inspections, right? So that's a 100% increase in inspection. The challenge is that most operators still use fragmented tools like picture uploads, notes, checklists, etc. They're prone to human error and they're really hard to verify. So starting Paraspot now not only helps them to comply, but it actually helps them with increasing their NOI as well, because now they have the ability to fairly deduct. And fair is really an important word here. Like we're not in the business to help property managers to make more money on deposits. We're in the business of making this whole process fair and transparent. That's what we want to do. So by involving the tenant, by involving AI, by having an unbiased layer of detections with the before and after comparison, we allow them to do that. So it's been a huge push for us. It pushed forward a lot of great deals, a lot of great partnerships as well. And we're just doubling down on it and just getting started. And I think, by the way, that there's going to be more and more legislation that will come into different states in the US as well that will go into that direction.
This episode is brought to you in collaboration with CREtech, one of the most valuable events I attend each year. It's happening October 21st and 22nd at the Javits Center in New York. Whether you're a real estate owner, operator, developer, or tenant, this is where the industry comes together to share ideas, explore new tech, and build relationships that actually move the business forward. I've had the chance to grow real partnerships and discover solutions here that I probably wouldn't have come across otherwise. And this year, CREtech is rolling out something new for 2025 that I get to tell you about. The Hosted Meetings Program. It's designed for qualified real estate professionals and it covers your full event pass plus up to $800 in travel and hotel costs. All they ask in return is that you take a few short, curated one-on-one meetings with tech companies that align with your business needs. It's a smart, low-pressure way to explore what's out there without the typical event costs. If your company owns or manages 1,000 residential units or 1 million square feet of commercial real estate and you're involved in tech or operational decision making, this is definitely worth checking out. You can learn more in the show notes and see if you qualify by reaching out to us at tangentcommunity@gmail.com. I'd love to help you get set up and hang out at the event. Use our code PARTNERTANGENT20 for 20% off your ticket. See you at CREtech. Now, back to the show. That's certainly shifting how operators have been providing housing since forever. And you guys being right place at the right time with the right technology, I think it just shows how you understand where, not only operations are going, but the dynamics that are happening within apartments and what's really missing at the end of the day from this becoming a more streamlined and also more fair industry. So nothing lucky about that timing. You build your own timing and the regulators followed suit.
That's the thing, right? And I hope there's a lot of, startup listeners to this podcast as well. It's like, you don't always feel like you have product market fit, or, you're always on a roller coaster, right? You can have the best day and then an hour after the worst thing ever happened. And the crucial thing is, and that's what I believe and probably what I learned most on this journey, is persistence. Just keep going, right? Push, 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 push. You still have runway. You still have your team. You still have your product. Like, even if the worst thing happens, get back up and keep pushing. And the right time will come, right? If your product is good enough and if you're lucky enough as well, the time will come. You just sometimes have to push your luck. Sitting at home, feeling sorry for yourself and waiting for it, it's never going to come. But if you push it and if you push in the right direction, and that has been similar in my whole life usually, that's really where you can push your luck, get these little gems like a new legislation in California, which, I didn't expect to happen, right?
Just a little gem from the largest state with the most homes in the country, no biggie.
Exactly. Now, in hindsight, it would have been smart to move to California instead of to the tri-state area, but little do we know.
So let's hone in on the deposit game, because according to stats, most operators of Class A rental used to touch less than 10% of their deposit pool in a given year. Now with itemization and compliance needs rising, how are deductions being tracked and how do you help operators stay fair while still recovering the costs?
Well, first of all, what's important to say is that everything for every property management company is becoming more expensive. There is inflation, there is a rising cost in people doing the jobs, there's a rising cost in insurance. So their margins are getting more and more tight, and they're not able in most states to push up the rent by more than 10%. So that puts them in a more difficult position. And we can talk about those stats later on as well. So with Paraspot, we basically automate the process, right? So property manager or a tenant conduct a move-in inspection. They take a video, typically 6, 7, 8 minute video of the unit. Let's talk about single family, so around 6 to 10 minutes. They upload the video onto our platform, and then we go through every single frame of that unit. Now, we do the same at move out as well. And if we find a damage at move out, our AI then goes through the move-in inspection and looks for the frame that matches that area the best way possible. And then we put it side by side.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it's really great what we've done so far, but we're really proud of a new feature, which is a game changer, in my opinion, that we actually brought out yesterday in beta for some of our clients. So Paraspot was only a visual detection. So we use computer vision algorithms to assess. Now, of course, that has its certain limitations. For example, you can tell if there is bad odor at a unit from visual. You cannot tell if the AC unit is blowing out only hot air and not cold air. So we did find a patchwork where we added like a questionnaire at the end where the property manager could upload this information manually, but we didn't love that. Today, what we did is we added an audio track as well. When a property manager now does an inspection, they can talk at the same time. So for example, if they go to the dishwasher, they can say like, hey, make sure that you're capturing the tag, and this is the serial number. They can say, hey, I just tested the AC and it's only blowing out hot air. And then we're going to automatically create that in the report where we're going to take 2 or 3 frames from the time that the landlord or property manager spoke, added their notes. We work on those notes a little bit as well to make them short and sweet. But now we really give them the complete ability to take a 10-minute or 6-minute or 8-minute video, talk while they're doing it, and really have a complete report in such little time, which is insane. Whoa. So we're working on a press release on that, where we're working on some video and some marketing on that. So watch that space. And we're really excited to getting it out there.
Super cool. Does the inspector have to speak English?
No. Great point, by the way. So I speak German and French and Hebrew. So I've tested it on that. I have to say, the German is one of the weaker ones, but we're working on it. Spanish is working great. We used to have an intern from Colombia, and he's still very close with us. He tested out. The Spanish works great. I think if you cover English and Spanish, probably the majority is done in the US. But yeah, if you do the recording in Spanish, it will translate it straight to English and put the notes in as English. So even the property managers and supers can have some fun with it and, try different languages if they're multilingual as well.
Amazing. So let's talk about the differences and how are you fitting the use cases of single family rentals and multifamily operations. So what makes Paraspot such a strong fit for these third-party single-family property managers and multifamily REITs? Talk about how distance, unit size, and inspection frequency shape the operational challenges of each of the 2 main buckets.
For sure. Also there, we did a lot of A/B testing. Our first assumption was high turnover and furnished is going to be our best fit. We tried vacation rentals and we tried furnished housing / co-living. Didn't work 100%. We did see some traction, some success, but it wasn't like the best possible because, well, furnished rental is quite niche. Vacation rentals is quite big, but very fragmented. So for us, the big paradise is multi and single family because these are the biggest verticals within the real estate asset class. Now, we found specific fit when it comes, as you mentioned, to single family third-party management companies and to multifamily REITs. So let's uncover this. So with single family, third-party property management companies, we see the best fit, and those are the most deals that we close. The reason for that is there's long travel time to the units because the units are scattered. There are big units, right? There's single family homes. Some of them are multi-story. Some of them have big yards. So there's just a lot of work that has to be done when it comes to inspections. And, there's no on-site team there. So that was one of the reasons that single family worked really well for us. On top of that, in single family, for some reason, you have more inspections. So single family property managers, they do move in and move out inspections, they do pre-move out inspections, they do renewal inspections, they do drive-bys, they can do even quarterly or semi-annual inspections. For some reason, they do more inspections. With our flat rate offering, we serve them really well. So that was, a really good fit for us. We work with clients that usually start at around 500 units that they manage. Our sweet spot is around 1,000 plus units as well. So more companies, less mums and pops, let's call it. On the other side is multifamily. So historically, it was very difficult for us to penetrate multifamily, especially smaller operators, because they were like, okay, we have 1, 2, 3 buildings. We have our on-site team there. This is not a must-have for us, and fair enough. What's interesting is with REITs, it's a different play. So with REIT, we have the whole centralization, right? A big subject in our industry for 2-3 years. Many people speak about it. I don't know how many people implement it, but I know a few big companies that have implemented it, and they are seeing, huge increase in NOI. And with Paraspot, we helped them with a piece that I didn't believe would be possible to centralize. So the goal of centralization, maybe for the audience that doesn't know, is that their goal is to take away tasks or to make the task of the on-site teams easier and put most of the work in a centralized team, which they can sit, for example, in Texas at a big office, etc. With Paraspot, one of our clients, for example, allowed, and there, by the way, we started in California as well, which is a nice little interesting piece of information as well. So that pushed us as well there. They allowed tenants to do some of the inspections and the on-site team some of the inspections, but we could offload 30 to 50% of their inspections to the tenant. And then the information that our client receives in terms of damages, issues at the unit, because it's before and after comparison, because it's all a video and all detected automatically with descriptions, a centralized team can then take care of the deposit deduction, for example, or of, working out the work order for the turn. So these are really the two pools where we have the most traction right now.
You seem to be, deep in the single family rental industry. So I want to hear your takes, what's going on in the single family rental space now. We've seen institutional investment flow into SFR over the past few years, even though it's not what it used to be, 21, 22, or even before COVID. At the same time, we have rising costs, as you mentioned, tighter margins, operational headaches. So what's your view on where the sector is headed?
It's such an interesting and dynamic market, first of all. And by the way, one of the biggest advantages that, the move to the US made for me was that I am renting a single family home in Englewood. So this just puts a lot of things into perspective for me as well. First of all, the housing stock in the US can be fairly old. And the build quality, I would say, having lived in Switzerland and in Israel, the build quality is not the best. So that's one thing. And a lot of stuff breaks in the house. Like, we have friends here in Englewood, they can live, either in houses that are worth a couple of $100K or houses that are worth millions. They all have a vacuum cleaner at home to suck out water in the winter when there's big rain, for example. Happens to everyone. It's insane. Yep. So that's the first thing, just about the housing stock. And that is, a bit old, not the best quality, and it's a lot of work. The other thing is that we have institutional investment that continues to flow in. Blackstone, BlackRock, and many others, private equity firms, are investing heavily in that market. And the reason for that is that there's so much, laws around it that makes it really difficult for people to build homes. So stock is low, interest rate is high, people need to rent more time than what they're used to, they're not able to buy. So, these institutional investors are saying like, hey, I'm going to have 99% occupancy no matter what. My assets value is only going to raise Why am I not putting money into this? That's one thing AI can change. People can't live in AI. They need to live under a roof. There's always going to be demand for housing, especially in markets like Switzerland, Israel, or the US, where, the immigration into the country is higher than the people moving out because there's a big pull of these countries that pulls people in. Now, on top of that, we have big issues when it comes to the expenses, and I touched upon that a little bit before as well. So we have operating expenses that go up by 7 to 10% year over year. Maintenance and repair costs jump 12% year over year. I lived in Israel and in Switzerland, two very expensive countries. I was shocked when I saw how expensive things here are. Shocked. Because I used to come to the US every 1-2 years. I remember coming from Switzerland to the US and I thought, oh, wow, things here are cheap. And now my family is still back in Switzerland. But when I compare prices of everything, right? Get a technician out to fix something, hundreds of dollars. Anything is super expensive. And the other one is insurance premiums. Due to climate risk and inflation, they're up by more than 20%. It's just so expensive. And as I mentioned before, in most states, you can raise rent by more than 10%. Property managers usually make around 13% of the rent as their income. So everything is becoming more expensive, but you can't increase your revenues by that much. So the only thing that's left for you is to use technology to streamline those processes. So that's what I see in the market. And then the other part, and we touched upon that before as well, is regulatory complexity. So new laws in California and the law in New York in 2019. Property managers and landlords are always pictured as the bad guys. They're pushing rent up. They're doing this. They're doing that. Like, I'm a landlord myself. My family's are landlords. I know they're not bad people. It costs a lot of money to manage housing and to provide housing to renters. Renters, it's easy. You come, you pay your money, you're staying. But if anything, and we had a huge flood in my house here, my landlord, went crazy because whoever says that real estate is passive income is the biggest joke in the world. It's so much work and you have to do so many things. So yeah, regulatory complexity is another huge pain point. And I understand why policymakers want to do it because they think they want to protect the tenants and it gets them votes. But I think in most of the states, it's counterproductive as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about partnerships that are helping with distribution and adoption of Paraspot. So you've plugged into several, mainstream PMSs, but today you're announcing a new partnership. Tell us about what this partnership unlocks for the industry.
Absolutely. So first of all, the inspection piece can tap into two sides of the real estate operation. One side is work orders, getting work done at the unit. So fixing stuff, turnovers, make-readies, etc. And the other side that we're very bullish about is deposits. So I'm really happy to announce today that we have partnered up with DepositCloud. DepositCloud is a solution which really manages the whole deposit handling for their multifamily clients. They work with some of the largest companies in the US and they hold the deposits for them. They give a deposit alternative for the tenants. And they're also responsible for the work after move out, assessing the report that is provided to them by their client and releasing the deposit. So we got introduced to them by a friend. His name is Taylor at PropTech IQ. Shout out to Taylor. He's an amazing guy. We hit it off straight away. So we're going live on August 1st. We have amazing meetings lined up already. And Paraspot plus DepositCloud is going to be a huge improvement on the side of deposit handling and move outs and inspections. So we're super excited about that. And besides that, we're integrating with most of the major PMSs out there. It's so important in our industry to facilitate those integrations because even for me, right, I have HubSpot as my CRM. Everything that I'm using needs to feed into HubSpot. All my emails need to be logged there. All the sales outreach tools that I'm using need to log into there because I want to have one source of truth. So that's the same with the PMS as well. So, we integrate with most of the major PMSs, and we're actually working on some really great partnerships with some of them. One of them is Rent Manager, And another one is a little bit of a bigger one that hopefully we can announce soon as well.
Super exciting. And definitely shout out to Taylor Whitaker from PropTech IQ. So collaboration superpower. If you could choose one person, historic or living, to do a partnership with, who would it be?
So really interesting one. One of them would be Ryan Serhant, because on one side, I really love his energy and I love how he's out there and how he's just pushing the envelope nonstop. I know that our industries that we work in are not directly linked, but I still think there's something that can be done there. And I would just love to, have coffee with him and just learn from him.
I think Serhant and Paraspot could make inspections sexy again. And my co-host will facilitate
He for sure
that
would find a way. I know. I was hoping Jeffrey would be here to facilitate the introduction straight away, because I know they invested into Simple.
They, as Jeffrey would say, they didn't just invest, they are the largest investor at Camber Creek. So shout out for that match made in PropTech. Nathan, last but not least, where can Tangent listeners, multifamily and single family owners and operators learn more about Paraspot and connect with you?
Absolutely. So LinkedIn is always a great way. So Nathan Herz on LinkedIn, Herz with a Z, no TZ. Not related to the car rental company. The other one is our website, which is paraspot.ai. And you can just feel free to leave a demo request there or reach out to Edward and he can put us in touch as well.
Nathan Herz, co-founder and COO of Paraspot, the AI solution to fully automate your property inspections. Thank you so much for coming to Tangent today and for showing us how you grind and the low lows and the high highs in startups are worth it for moments like this. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Edward, I have to say, I love this podcast and you know this as well. So it's been such a pleasure to be on it and to speak to you this morning.
Muchas gracias. And thank you for listening to this episode of Tangent PropTech. If you learned something new or enjoyed the conversation, text a friend the link to this episode right now. Tangent PropTech is co-hosted by me, Edward Cohen, along with Jeffrey Berman and Zach Aarons. You can find links, resources, and ways to connect with us in the show notes, or reach out anytime at tangentcommunity@gmail.com or on LinkedIn. We love interview suggestions, topic ideas, or just a friendly hello. If you're building something impactful in real estate or tech and want to reach our audience of decision makers, investors, and operators, email us. Again, that's tangentcommunity@gmail.com. We'll catch you next time. And remember, the best PropTech ideas usually start with a tangent.